I want the group, Steve-O Walton, where you at? And just a couple of, run up here real quick along with like a student or two from like what you were sharing with me earlier. Where you at? From Rockwall, yeah. I love fiery people, and I've hung out with the people in Rockwall. They are some fiery people. Run up here real quick, Steve-O. Yeah. Yeah, my brother's messed up. I love it. Woo. Are you able to do this?
I think so.
You think so? Tell what happened last night?
Bear with me. Oh, gosh. All right, so we leave the parking lot here. We were talking on the way to the van, but then we get in the van and we just have like soft piano music playing, and we just don't even speak. And I don't know why. I started crying, and one of my other youth leaders started crying. And the glory was on our kids in the van. And when we get to Whataburger, some of us, we couldn't get out. So one of my other youth leaders, she asked, "Can I get you burgers?" I was like, "Yes, let's go get them." But then we drive back to the hotel, and I just stopped the car. And came down some more. So we were praying in the van, and Mika, I have to point him out. He's a man of God back there with the beard. He comes from all the way from Finland. He comes from Finland. He'll be going back this August, but he was helping me pray with people. But I was like, man, we got limited space, so I was like, man, we gotta go outside. And so we want to go away from the hotel, so we're gonna make noise. Well, we pull around the corner, and on the grass, and this is just all over us last night, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. So we're just praying for each other, and he's just praying over me, and I'm praying for him, and all of us are praying, and then the blue and the red lights pull up, and I'm like, oh, this is great, Jesus. And so, but before that, I forgot, I skipped a part. This lady came across from the parking lot where the business people park, and she just got off work, and I was like, I go over there, I'm like, okay, I got to establish who I am, because they're thinking we're crazy and what's going on over there. And so I go over there, I'm telling them, I'm like, I'm a youth pastor, I'm just praying for my kids, and she's like, oh, you're just doing the Lord's work. I was like, yeah, that's right, you want any prayer? And she's like, oh, it's okay, I was like, all right. And you tell them what happened next. When the cops pulled up, this is what happened.
Okay, so I was getting delivered or something, because all night I was just feeling like I wasn't receiving anything, and like I was like just sitting in the car, I wouldn't talk to anyone, and even people from our youth group said, "What's wrong, are you okay?" And I just didn't respond to them, and they're like, "She's not talking, what's happening to her?" And then in the car we pulled up to Whataburger, and I'm like, I don't feel anything, everybody's crying, I want to get touched too. And then Mika was like, "What's wrong?" And I was just like, I don't know. And then he he asked me if I felt like distant from Jesus, and I was like, yes, I do. And then he started praying for me, and then I just started like crying too, and I was like, yes, and I started crying more than I've ever cried before. I was like, yeah, and then we started, and then we started laughing and crying and shaking and screaming, and then I think I even heard Jemiah cry, but I don't know, maybe. And then whenever we pulled over to the parking lot, like we rolled down the window so the girls could like just say goodnight or whatever, and they all started, Steve reached out his hand, and they all started like laughing and giggling like they were gonna fall over too, and we're like, yeah, it's on them too now, woo. And then yeah, And then we went and we pulled over to the other parking lot or whatever, the garage parking lot. And yeah, and then here's the part where the cops came, and we all pull out, and then I was like, I feel like there's something like right here on the top of my throat. Like I wanted to cry, but I couldn't cry as hard as I wanted to cry. I wanted to shout or something. I was like, something needs to come out. And I was like, it's getting stuck right there. And then so I told Mika, and then Mika and Sio started praying for me, and I was like screaming bloody murder, rolling around on the grass, and like just like I was like belly flopping on the grass. I was like rolling around. It was crazy. And then we're getting in the car ready to go, and then the cops show up, and then we're like, oh no, and we're like, just buckle your seatbelt, act all chill, don't say anything, and we're all like, no, in the car, and then we're like praying in tongues, like, please don't let us go to jail, and then so they come to the door, and they're like, so which one of you was on the ground screaming? And they're like, her over there. So I get out of the back of the van, and I'm talking to some cop, and he's like, so the first thing he says, he goes, ma'am, have you been punched today? And I'm like, no. And then he's like, do you feel okay? I'm like, yes. And he's like, I got a disturbing phone call. Some people think that there was like either a drug shoot up or a drive-by or something. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like swaying around, trying to be still and act cool, because I'm like in front of a cop. I'm like, oh, hello. And then I'm like falling forward, like I'm gonna fall on him. And then I'm like, please don't let him think I'm so like drunk, like for real. He's gonna like pull out a breathalyzer on me. Please don't. And then he's like, are you seriously okay? Have any of you guys tonight had an alcoholic intake this evening? I'm like, no, sir, we don't do drugs or alcohol. And then I started laughing. And then the cop and then the cop kind of looked down, and he's like, and I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, whatever, praying in tongues. I'm like, down there, and I'm like swaying around, and then I look up, and he's like, so where do you come from? I'm like, Waterburger. I'm like about to come, like, Waterburger parking lot, and then he's like, no, really, where did you come from? I'm like, we came from Revival, but then we went to Waterburger, and we had to come here because it was so amazing. And then he's like, what church was it? And I'm like, Heartland. And he goes, oh, I heard about the Heartland. And I'm like, and then I'm like, yeah, touch it.
What a reputation, right? Woo, setting young people on fire. Come on. Yeah, we're not drunk as you should suppose. Pentecost has got to come back. Come on. The next move of God is going to be Pentecostal. And you know what? God's not waiting. He's ready to visit. He's ready to visit. And you know what? You've got to have the fire, the passion. You've also at the same time got to have the Word of God in you. You've got to be balanced, and that's the way you do it. You get the passion and you get the Word, and you stay balanced. We need to reset Pentecostalism to where we're not all about emotionalism and hype, which is the way the world supposes us all about. We need to show that we're balanced with the Word of God as well. But you know what? We're always going to look weird to the world. They're always going to look at us like, I don't understand you. The things of God are foolishness to man. Those